There are active discussions going on about tokenomic changes that will continue to make the RPL token relevant into the future. And I think we've got a little bit of time to get these things figured out. And the fact that we're already thinking about those things now is a huge plus.
Hey, Rocket Poolers. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Weekly Orbit. This is the week ending the 23rd of June, 2023. I'm Pat. I'm here with my co-host, Wack, who's in the middle of a special assignment. We send our correspondents to all corners of the globe, and he's tracking down a Rocket Pool lead as we speak. But the dedication that the Weekly Orbit staff has to putting out product and content is unmatched in the podcast world. How are you, Wack?
I'm doing great. Yeah. I'm actually currently driving, but I'm going to be stopping in like 2 minutes. So then I'll be able to give you my full undivided attention. But until then, I'm here and I'm present mentally, but I kind of have to watch the road a little bit too. So it's all good.
That's great. And you had your official 200th episode of your podcast and a great raffle, which we'll be talking about later in the show. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, 200 episodes. They've gone by in like 10 months. I've done actually, it's more than that. It's actually 220 videos I've uploaded in total. But of actual like daily rocket fuel, like, the news show, that's 200 episodes now. So it's amazing. Like I wouldn't have believed that I'd be doing this now.
Right. I mean, a year ago, you were even thinking about doing a podcast 12 months ago?
Not a rocket fuel one. Like it was, my wife was just like, "Oh, you've got the personality for it. It'll be something that you're really good at. Like you could definitely present yourself in a certain way." And I was like, I don't know what I should be recording about. Like everything's already done. And then it was actually Marceau who was like, make a channel about rocket pool. And I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. And then that's where that idea was born. So
right. Yeah. I know I watch it all the time, and because I mean, speaking for myself, I just don't have time to be in Discord for very long. I'll come in and browse here and there, but you really need someone like yourself to. And I know you have community members who help, get together the daily content for you, because it's just one person can't do it all. And but it's really a valuable resource that you produce.
I was doing it on my own until January, and it was just too much. Like there was episodes that were taking 8 hours a day, and for just one 30-minute episode, it was just too much. Like I was putting too much of my life into it. So the whole community stepped up in the most amazing way from the beginning of February, and they've been phenomenal. And without their help, I wouldn't have been able to do it and get an episode out every day. They've just been amazing. So shout out to all the people who have those contributor co-ops. Like I couldn't do it without them.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's start the episode with our favorite content that you like, and that's stats for the week of the 23rd of June. And so familiar with our deposit pool, of course. This week's been pretty good. We've had a couple big whale deposits on, let's see, going back to most of the days, this last 7 days have been 4-digit deposit dates. So you had about 2,300 on the 18th of June, 28 and change on the 19th, a little smaller deposit day on the 20th. But then, the last couple of days we've been 3,000 and 4,000 ETH. Today we got over 1,000. So it's still coming in, Wack, in terms of the deposit pool. Any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's undeniable that, we've slowed down on the weekly deposits compared to 3 weeks ago. Like on the 5 weeks, 6 weeks before that. Like that was definitely gargantuan, right? Those were amazing. We were getting as much in a week than, that we were getting in multiple months last year. In fact, big chunks of last year, right? Like in a month we had as much as we had in a year. So It was understandable that those numbers, would be difficult to sustain. However, right now the deposits we're getting are very, very, very respectable, and we're getting as much in a week as we would get in, some of the better months before Atlas and the deposit pool change happened since before April, basically. Like, you know, getting 15,000 in the month would be classed as one of the better months for Rocket
Right.
Pool deposits. Now we're getting that in a week. So, you know, we've still definitely like grown. It's just there's recency bias, right? So people think of the numbers that are most recent. They think, oh, you know, 40,000 in a week, that's what we want to be going for. However, that I think like is just a little bit too much. Like those are like exceptional weeks. But
Right.
even now, we if we kind of take a step back and like look a little bit from like a zoomed out view, we're doing so well.
We
It's
are.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like if I'm highlighting the total deposit pool or total deposit graph, and we went vertical right after Atlas, and it's not as vertical, but we're still up and to the right, and we're
Yep.
still growing as a protocol, and that's great to see. The deposit deposit pool itself has got a balance at the moment about 1,800. It's about 10% full. So, hey, if you're a node operator who's considering maybe breaking their 16 mini pool 16s into 8s, this might be a good time because you can immediately get into the beacon chain queue. And let's take a look at nodes, how we're doing on those as well. We're still growing there. I think we're at, let's see, for June, we've got 158 registrations, which is great. In May, we had 298. So we're on track. I think we're at 30, we're almost at 2,950 WAC,
Yeah.
2,950 independent node operators. It's
Yeah.
still growing. We're gonna hit
We've been
3,000 hopefully the next month or two or
I think in
sooner.
the next maybe 2 weeks we will hit 3,000, and I think that's going to be a really great landmark. I saw this chart today, right, that was showing about validators and all these other different chains, and Rocket Pool on as a validator on its own. Like, just if Rocket Pool was an alternative layer one, we would have more node operators than almost every other layer one out there. And there's only like three of them that are even comparable in the same like ballpark as Rocket Pool would be. It's absolutely like astounding. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think Ethereum is lucky to have Rocket Pool. I mean, to have so many independent, decentralized node operators who are geographically dispersed
Mhm.
is it strengthens the security of the protocol, and it's a fundamental need for security. So it's great. I think we're doing great there.
Absolutely. And the thing to remember as well is that, you know, we are geographically dispersed. We are dispersed with clients. We are like just best of everything you could ask for in terms of staking providers. It's really, really great.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Uh, Actually, right now, Rocket Pool's execution client diversity. This is a initiative by members of the Rocket Pool community who are looking to help diversify the execution client of node operators within Rocket Pool. So prior to this initiative, we were at about 51% using Geth, which is actually better than most. If you look at Lido, they're around 85, but that 51 is still too high. And just since June 4th, the last couple of weeks, I should say, we've put that down to 48%. So now we're under 50%. And most of the growth has gone to Nethermind, which is at 18.4%. So, the folks in Rocket Pool land are really concerned about this stuff. And more, I'm thinking Lido, they don't really care about this stuff. You see, there's really two camps that have been growing within Ethereum, and Rocket Pool is certainly concerned about long-term security. Lido, I think they're if I had to opinionate, I think that they're more concerned with growth of the protocol at any cost.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's I think that's totally fair to say because Lido have signaled that over and over again. Another thing here that you should pay attention to as well, Pat, is that we won't actually get updated numbers for clients changing until they make a proposal, because that's how we scrape the data of what client pairs of people are using. So it might be that, you know, Bob changed from Geth to Bisu, but Bob hasn't had a proposal since he changed. So there's no way to keep track of that change. So
It's
I
a good
think, you
point.
know, sadly, it might take up to like 2 months for the average person to get a proposal, maybe even 3 months. So it might be a while before
Yeah.
Bob gets a proposal. So we'll see the full impact of this, but it's definitely a nice trend that we're heading on, and it's a wonderful initiative that was started by Schifrin and a few other people, and I'm so proud of the work they're doing. It's really, really wonderful.
Yeah. Hats off to them. Okay, let's move on to, there was some debate this week. Hal Press had a tweet that got the Hornets nest going. And he says, I know people are going to want to defend Rocket or RPL, and I'm all for the value of RPL, adds to the ecosystem by decentralizing ETH. But the reality is, once staking participation tops and shares stabilize, there is literally no need for anyone to buy RPL again. Again, I'm not short, just sharing honest thoughts. And this sparked a long thread, which there was some back and forth. I want to highlight. Let's go down. Where are we here? That's the next one. I know Marceau is in here somewhere, and I lost it. But the general thing here is that, well, this is what Hell Press is saying has truth to it. But not right now. ETH staking is still in a growth mode. Rocket Pool is still in a growth mode. When these things plateau out, I don't know when that'll be. Who knows? Is that 6 months from now, 12, 18 months, 2 years in terms of the staking? Things will plateau out. But since we're still in growth phase, there's still a lot of runway here to grow in terms of RPL. And I wish I had Marceau, but essentially what Marceau said was, we've got about 20 million ETH staked on the Beacon chain. Most folks are thinking that's going to continue growing. Perhaps we get to 30 million. Let's say we get to 30 million. And if Rocket Pool is 3% of the staking at 20 million, well, if it's let's say we don't take any more market share, but staking ETH goes up to 30 million. Well, 3% of 30 million is more than 3% of 20. So even if we don't gain even one fraction of a percent of market share, we're still going to grow basically until the Beacon chain fills up to its equilibrium. That's my thought. I don't know if your take on that.
Yeah. So the Hal Press, like you said, there's an element of truth to what he said, and you get that from the idea of like when it's saturated, right? But the argument that Marceau and others are making is, first of all, it's not saturated because it's still in a huge growth phase. And that's going to carry on for a while yet. Marceau's base number he uses is 40 million ETH staked, and I think that's about right. So, there's 20 million active validators now, 3 million more in the queue. We expect that, to be 23 million in the next month, basically, or 6 weeks. And then that will carry on growing, potentially maybe over the next year, maybe over the next 18 months to up to about 40 million. Even like you said, at 30 million, right? Like if we keep our share, that is then another 50% of validators on top of what we already have now. At the same share at 30 million. At 40 million, if you keep the same share, that's extra 100%. So there is demand for RPL token within that, right? There has to be RPL token demand within that. Now, there might be savvy people in the community who are just like starting to see that that we're getting to that point now where we are getting, maybe in the next 6 months we'll be at saturation, and maybe even the next year we'll be at saturation. At that point, those people might start thinking that it's time to sell out, slowly sell out of Rocket Pool, the RPL token. There's one thing that Marceau didn't mention that Hal Press didn't realize as well, is that Rocket Pool protocol RPL token, they're subject to changes in tokenomics that could potentially give that a huge boost, right? Like, it doesn't mean that just because staking will be saturated that RPL will fall flat and never be needed again. There are active discussions going on about tokenomic changes that will continue to make the RPL token relevant into the future. And I think we've got a little bit of time to get these things figured out. And the fact that we're already thinking about those things now is a huge plus.
Right. I know there's talk about, right now RPL has utility because it's needed by node operators to stake. But there's been talk of how do we make this, we can integrate this into DeFi. Maybe we can use RPL to lend and borrow against. So those discussions are ongoing. And Marceau, he posts a graph of RPL, starting from looks like June of 2021 till current, and it's up and to the right. RPL did lose a bit against the ETH ratio this week. We've been kind of hovering around 0.025, 0.026 last 30 days, and I think we're down to 0.021 and change. But that's also in a backdrop. The context is a lot of altcoins have really taken a hammering. RPL has held up pretty well compared to, some coins have just, the bottom's dropped out.
Yeah. And you have to think as well, like we are in a very, very strong position overall. Like just looking back a year ago, RPL around June last year, basically about pretty much exactly a year ago, we were at $7.50 and we were at 0.0075 in the ratio. Right. So we are a good like 5-6x up on the USD price, and with nearly 3x up on the ETH price. That's phenomenal growth, right? It's just like I said, like earlier, we were saying, sometimes you have to take a little bit of a step back to get the fuller picture. This is another one of those situations where you kind of have to take a little bit of a step back to get the fuller picture, because once you do that, you'll see that, the trend, like you can see on the screen, is strongly up and to the right. And right. You never know how long this is going to carry on for, right? Like just because there's fancy lines drawn doesn't mean that those lines have to be listened to forever. But, it's a good position right now to be in RPL. Compared to other alts over the last year, definitely.
Yeah, and you know what? When you get some price action on the downward side, this is a real good example where the way the tokenomics for RPL work is there's a floor that is created by node operators who need RPL. So if you say you started your node operation and you stake the minimum of RPL at 10%, well, if that ratio goes down, now you're below 10%, which means you're not going to get rewards that period for that month. So folks are like, oh, wait, I might have to top off my RPL a little bit and buy some so I get over that 10%. So that it creates a floor for the price in some ways, where those node operators who are on the lower end of the collateral requirement, when the market goes down, they have to buy in order to get rewards. So that's a unique feature of the RPL token that I'm not sure if any others have.
Yeah, there's definitely a buy pressure built into the token. However, like if you go purely by the buy pressure required to buy RPL to stake, like we're way above that price. Like that is a lot lower than where we are right now. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely like a speculation premium built into the RPL price. In USDs, and well, especially against ETH, right? That's what we care about. There's definitely a speculation premium in the price at the moment. But yeah, you're right. There is a percentage of the value that is that fundamental buy pressure that you mentioned.
Yeah, a friend of mine, he texted me the other day. He's like, "Hey, what's this? I'm below 10%. Am I not going to get rewards?" And I said, "Well, you'll get your ETH rewards, but all you need to do is top it off over 10%. The day of or day before the next reward period, and you'll be okay." And so it creates that buy pressure, hey, I better go out and buy a few RPLs. So it's nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let's move on. When I wanted to mention this real quick, sometimes we forget, we get into the weeds, but Jasper, he does a nice tweet here to remind us that, hey, you know what? Solo staking's okay. You get your yield, was it 4%, 5%, whatever it might be. And then, hey, you can go and use DeFi and leverage and try to get more. Right now, though, that's not as lucrative because the amount of yield you get from staking is almost nearly equal to the amount you have to pay to borrow. So he reminds us that, hey, you know what? You can solo stake. You don't have to take any of that extra risk of leveraging. And if you do it with Rocket Pool, you earn 40% more than solo stakers, and it's like, oh yeah, I almost forgot about that. It's one of the most lucrative ways to earn yield on your staked ETH is with Rocket Pool, if not the best way. I mean, hands down.
Yeah. Right? So There's like degen options that you could do that might get you more yield, but I think that's the point here was a really good one, because if you stake, with your 32 ETH on the solo staking, you're getting somewhere between 5 and 6%. If you are doing Aave's E mode, that we've talked about a lot,
Right.
and if you degen to the max on the maximum risk at 10 times, you're getting around 8% supposedly. Like, so that is, you're taking a more risk, you're getting more reward. However, with Rocket Pool being a node operator, now you're getting 8.37% APR, which is better than anything really. Like you're doing better than Aave E mode, you're doing better than solo staking, and it's a lot less risky than any kind of like degen activities that you could be doing to get those kind of yields. So it's a really, really smart option to go the Rocket Pool route.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, and another great tweet by Jasper. He did this today. So this is a little more involved. So he kind of talks about the 5 upgrades that will scale Rocket Pool. And these are the things that I think over the next 6 months that the Rocket Pool community and team are going to be really focused on. And we can go through these each one. The first one is gigapools. The next one is node operators and DVT and L2s. The third is inflation changes. Fourth is wallet integrations. The fifth is forced exits. Let's go over these real quick. What are gigapools?
Right. So when you set up a validator with Rocket Pool now, you it's one contract for one validator. So each like mini pool you have, each validator you have with Rocket Pool has its own address on the beacon chain, and its own address, sorry, as a contract that then goes to the beacon chain. So you can track that basically like that. The problem with that is it's really gas inefficient, because for each time that you're making a new contract, you're setting that up, you are interacting with the contract. It's every interaction you make with that is a separate interaction. It's
Right.
really gas intensive. Setting up a gigapool would let you just have one contract that is yours, that you deal with the beacon chain through that. So then you'll have multiple validators on one contract instead of one contract per validator. So it'll make it easier to spin up mini pools. It'll make it easier for you to get your rewards from the mini pools. It'll make it easier for you to exit your mini pools. All of that stuff, it just makes it much, much, much more efficient as a node operator to interact with the beacon chain as a gigapool operator instead of the way we have it now.
Yeah.
Another really great thing as well is that you'll have node level collateral instead of validator level collateral. Now, this is a bit technical, but what it means is that if someone does something bad with Rocket Pool, like steal MEV, then you could punish their whole node instead of just punishing that one validator that did the bad thing. So it hopefully will open up the path to even less ETH bonded mini pools, hopefully.
Okay, cool. And now he mentions node operators, DVT L2s.
So
Go ahead.
these are different services that will basically make it easier for people to stake / them be more efficient stakers. So this isn't a layer 2 on Ethereum, this is a layer 2 on Rocket Pool, for example. So node operators are this group by Nick and Wanda. They're people in the Rocket Pool community. They've set up this protocol, this company, I guess, and people will send them their ETH or RPL, and then they will stake that with existing Rocket Pool node operators who will run that stake for them, and then they'll get a cut, and people will get more of a cut than they would just interacting directly with Rocket Pool. So this will like super help a Rocket Pool scale, I think, in a really, really great way. There's a whole bunch of people who are sat with like excess RPL right now that they can't do anything with, and this is a perfect avenue for them to deposit it into node operators and NodeSet. That's the name of the company, NodeSet.
Yep.
Deposit it with NodeSet and start earning those rewards. It's really, really lucrative. It's going to be huge for Rocket Pool. I think it's going to really drive up our ability to scale. And then DVT is a really great thing, because what will happen is you'll be able to get different node operators will kind of pool together on like a small basis, and they'll kind of help each other make sure that they are testing everything properly, make sure that they're getting all the rewards that they're supposed to be getting on the beacon chain. So what's happening right now is Rocket Pool validators are around 95 to 96% effective, and like other organizations, they're like 98 to 99% effective. So what happens is that you're missing out on those little bit of rewards on the top by not being quite as effective as other services. Things like DVT will help remove that. it'll make it so Rocket Pool node operators are 100% effective all the time. And I think that's really great as well.
Yeah. So the first two really, we're talking about removing friction from the system. So with the node operators, some friction might be someone who's got, I got ETH, but you know what? I don't want to have to go out and buy RPL. I like my pure ETH is pristine. Everything else is substandard. I don't want to have to do that. This node operator function will allow you to be paired with someone who's got some excess RPL, and it's a marriage, right? And I don't take on the risk of RPL, and that person with the RPL says, "Hey, I can earn more yield by taking my excess RPL, and we'll marry and do that." It's and then on the first one, reducing gas costs. It's just getting rid of more friction, keep making things more efficient, less gas, right? Okay, and then the third was inflation change. Quickly, what do you think on this? I'll scroll down to what Jasper had to say about inflation.
This is something that we've been working on in the community for like over a year, like nearly 2 years now, is that in this idea that the ODAO gets a certain percentage of inflation and the PDAO gets a certain percentage of inflation, node operators get a certain percentage of inflation. And right now, we're seriously thinking of changing those amounts. So it'll make it so the PDAO gets a slightly bigger share of the pie than the ODAO, and the node operators will get the same amount. So the thing that happens with that, the amazing thing that happens with that is that it will make it so committees like the IMC, the Incentives Management Committee, will just get more money to be able to do really amazing things, like provide liquidity for our ETH. So the
Yep.
way they would do would be to incentivize it on like the balancer pool or Uniswap pools. And what happens then is people will go out and buy our ETH to farm those yields, and then simultaneously what's happening is they're providing more liquidity for the RETH token, and we'll just have a lot more money to do that, which means we will have a lot more liquidity, which means people will be a lot more comfortable depositing big amounts of money into Rocket Pool, which means Rocket Pool will grow, which means we'll get more money, which means we'll have more money to be able to do that. It's like this beautiful flywheel. And
Right.
sadly, right now we're just constrained a little bit by the price of RPL as a token, or the limited amount of inflation that the IMC gets.
Yep.
Once as you tweak both of those numbers, either the RPL price goes higher or the IMC starts getting more money. Like as you tweak both of those, ideally both of them get cranked up, then we're off to the races in terms of what we can do with incentivizing our ETH.
Yeah, and incentivizing that's how the crypto industry kind of works. You have to incentivize, and once you get that flywheel going, it starts. That's how Lido got started. They incentivized their STETH pools immensely with Lido tokens, and they were able to gain market share really quick because of it. So yeah, that's great news. For the fourth one is wallet integrations.
So this is already happening with MetaMask. So like if you go into MetaMask, you can stake with Rocket Pool through MetaMask directly now. So this is already happening. What the next big one is that Ledger will do a wallet integration with Rocket Pool. So you'll be able to go into your Ledger Live app and be able to stake with Rocket Pool like straight through their platform. This should, like, and others as well, not just Ledger, of course. Like there's always like news of collaborations and wallet management companies and like all of these different people wanting to integrate Rocket Pool and RE specifically. It's really amazing. But then what we can do as well is, if we have a bit more money, we can start incentivizing that as well, and we can start giving like a referral fee. So Ledger might get a tiny bit off the top of the rewards, or whoever else is doing that, they might be able to get a tiny bit off the top in terms of rewards, and then they will push more people towards RETH, because then it'll increase their size of the pie as well. And the cost to Rocket Pool will be fairly like limited or negligible, depending on how we manage to set up those relationships. But this is stuff that's actually happening right now, and it's in the process right now. Like I think with Ledger, we're just waiting for the final audits to take place, and then we'll be set to go. And this, potentially could be a catalyst to, in its own way, spinning up like thousands upon thousands of RETH, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, again, removing another barrier, removing friction, make it easy for users. They use their Ledger Live. Oh, there's our ETH. I want to get some yield. Boom, and they don't have to go on a DEX. They don't have to search it out. It's right there in their face. That's great. And then the fifth one, forced exit. So EIP 7022, not currently scheduled. is referred to as forced exits. This EIP is being worked on by many LSTs as they will be able to de-risk. Validators could be exited from the execution layer, expanding staking pool design space. Why is this important to Rocket Pool that we have forced exit, Whack?
So let me explain it like this, right? So right now you need 8 ETH to be a node operator, right? For one validator. Now the chance of you coming across a lottery block for 8 ETH that has a reward of more than 8 ETH is like 1 in a few 100,000. It's really, really, really rare for you to get a block like that. So the chances of anyone stealing that much of a reward is like almost like non-existent pretty much, right? Like it's very, very, very low. However, as you reduce that bond limit more and more, the 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 chances people have for stealing get out to be a lot higher, right? Like they can steal. The chance of them getting a block that's worth stealing becomes higher. So with forced exits, what can happen is as soon as you get any sense of malicious activity from any node operator, you can kick them out of your set. So you don't have to like just wait and see what they're doing or how they're like behaving on the network. Any sense that you get a bad actor, you can kick them off. Right now, we have this idea of like 3 strikes and you're going to get punished kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's still, I think, ways around it, and it's not fully enforced yet, and there's still question marks around it. But with forced exits, we'll be able to like set a hard limit on what node operators can and can't do, and if they break the rules, then they're out basically. And there's no way for us to stop them from coming back, but it just adds a huge layer of friction for a bad actor to kind of exploit Rocket Pool in a way that will make it so it's not incentivized for them anymore. And what will happen then with that is we'll be able to lower the ETH collateral amounts to potentially 4 ETH, then maybe 2 ETH. And there's even this idea of like with gigapools that you might potentially have validators that are RPL only instead of ETH. So it could be LEB zeros potentially eventually as well. So those are some of the things.
So here, like, tell me if I got this right. So say you get about 8, you have an 8 ETH mini pool. You get a block proposal. Okay, you're not in the smoothing pool. You get a block proposal that's 20 ETH, and you're like, hey, why don't I just take the? Oh, I'm sorry. No, maybe I got it mixed up.
That's right. Yeah. So
20,
what happens?
So you take the 20, and then you're like, and you get, say you're malicious, so you get slashed, and you're like, I don't care. I got 20 ETH. I only put up 8. I don't care if it slashes. And then that validator sits, it stays there, and it's hurting the rest of the protocol because it got slashed. And am I kind of following this from an?
Yeah, not necessarily this. But what could happen is that, like as MEV rewards come in, that person can like siphon them off in a way that is really, there's not like a good way to stop that from happening. I mean, there are ways of blocking it on exit and like using the ODAO to kind of like put punitive measures in place. But as far as I understand, there's ways around it, and there's ways to still get away with stealing MEV. And then you can't kick that person off, right? Like, so they can become a drag on the system. Like, it's just not good for anyone basically, so for that to happen. So this would help us like make sure that people are less likely to steal to begin with, because they will see that we've got measures in place that will make it not possible for them.
You want to incentivize good behavior and disincentivize bad behavior, right? And this would be one major tool towards that goal.
It'd be costly, like financially costly for you to keep coming back in and starting mini pools, because the chance of you getting those rewards are so low that you'll just end up wasting more money than you gain.
Sure. Okay, on to our next one. I want to highlight this. Yogo Fubi posted this in Reddit. Now, I know I'm all in for Ethereum for the tech, but let's admit it, we're all in it for money too. Okay, so these are fun. It's a new. He had an existing spreadsheet. He improved it, and what it is I'll pull up his spreadsheet here. So you get to punch in some numbers, and then you figure out, well, how much money do I get in return? So, and I just posted this as a under speculative values. We put in some numbers. So say ETH someday is 10,000, and the ratio, RPL ratio with ETH is 0.035. And you've got 19 mini eight. This is for LEB eights. Okay, so say you had 19 LEB eights. You've got kind of the minimum amount of RPL staked at 1350. ETH APR is 3%. RPL APR is 6%. Well, you'd in US dollars, that's approximately $100,000 you'd be receiving annually. Okay, so if you ever, I'll post this in the show notes. This is just fun whack, playing around with numbers, but also, like folks like myself, I down the road, this income, it becomes important as part of your financial plan, and so I find this stuff really useful. I know you've probably played around with it too. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like the live values tab, which is the other tab of this. That kind of just lets you like use the numbers that are there now, and you can
Yep.
just kind of like do it for your own situation the way it is now. So it gives you a good idea of what you're making every month instead of having to like sit down and calculate it. So
Right.
you can put in there, whether you're in the smoothing pool, not in the smoothing pool, and all that kind of stuff, and what the rewards are like, and
Yeah.
it would spit out a number, right, of like what you're actually earning per month, and it's really nice in that sense. So like right now, it's using the example on the board there, it's like 9.14% in total,
Right.
which is um you know
3,700 a month.
yeah, seven hundred
That's with
dollars.
two mini pools,
That's
smoothing pool, and this is current ratio, current ETH price, current
yeah,
yield.
that's
So
per year.
it's good that, yeah, it's good. Like I was thinking ahead, but also if you want to know, hey, what am I, you know, when someone says that crypto stuff, it's for losers, you don't make any money. Well, it's like, well, actually, I could tell you what I'm doing right now in terms of
Yeah,
annual income. So
yeah.
really fun. And the last thing, I don't have it up, but Rocket Fuel had its awesome raffle the other night. 134 participants, 25 winners. Those are really good odds, by the way. And we had, well, why don't you tell us? I don't want to take away from the storyline for you.
So the raffle was just a way of celebrating 200 episodes of Rocket Fuel. So it happened last night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. I recorded it live into the episode, so you can go back watching it happen live as it took place. And a whole bunch of prominent community members won prizes. People that I talk to fairly regularly, they like won $100 each. The number one prize was $1,000, and I think 6 or 7 NFTs. The number two prize was $500, and I think 4 or 5 NFTs. And then prizes number 23 all the way to 25 were $100 basically in crypto.
3 to 25,
People
right?
got just
Yeah, three to 25.
no number three, number, yeah, 3 through to 25.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I thought you
So there
said
are 25
23.
prizes in total. No, yeah, sorry, no. From 3 to number 25, they won $100 each. So the total prize pool was around $3,800, and I think 12 NFTs. And thankfully, the price didn't move so much that it worked out almost exactly that I only had $10 left in my wallet afterwards. So it
Perfect.
worked out really nicely. Like it was just such a nice
Celebration.
exactly a celebration. And I put some of my own um RPL and NFTs in there as prizes, but the vast majority of it came from community members and people buying the 200th episode POAP, which was like amazing. So thank you everyone who took part in that. And like, not, I didn't get a single penny out of that for myself. It wasn't about me, getting anything for myself from it. It was just about giving back to the community. And people had a lot of fun with it. And I got so many messages of like support and kindness yesterday. I was so touched by that. And it was just really, really touching that, people are like they're watching, even though there's bear market blues and all of that stuff, people are still watching, supporting, taking part, like contributing, which is so huge for me. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to do it without those people. So all of that together is just like absolutely amazing, and I'm just so happy that we got this 200th episode done, and onwards to 300.
Onwards to 300. I was going to say, yeah. Well, congratulations, Whack. It's a real achievement, and it's just great to see. I know a lot of folks listen to it and watch it. I do it when I'm making my breakfast in the morning, just to get up to speed with the day's events. So thanks for your service, and that'll wrap up today's episode. Join us next week. Of course, none of this has been advice. Um, tax advice, financial, or whatever. It's just Whack and I talking crypto. He's, on assignment and dedicated as usual to bringing Rocket Pool news to our viewers. And we thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. And I'll see you next week as well.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.